Okay, we're at step 3 here of the installation guide on grading. After you've rototilled and spaded your soil, you're going to want to go in and rake and level out and smooth out your area, such as they're doing here. The most important thing I can say here about grading is making sure you don't make an area to trap water when you're doing the grading. Always make sure that during the winter rains you'll have an exiting point for your water so you don't have puddling. Otherwise, grading is just basic. You don't have to get too carried away with it, but try to prevent puddling and standing water. As you notice, Luis is going to start rolling the lawn, and then Salvador's over here grading out his edges, and he's checking his edges for 1.5 inches below the border. You want to make sure that you leave enough room for your sod. We don't want 3 inches down, and we don't want the soil level with your border. You want to leave about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. And the reason for that is so your dirt will have an area to butt into, but if you leave it too low, when you're mowing your grass, your lawnmower is going to want to bump into your border. So the figure on that is going to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches on that area. Salvador, why don't you show them the sprinkler over here? We have a sprinkler that's also set here by these bricks. Luis, stay back for a second. Okay, we've got a brick here, and we've got 1.5 inches down with your brick to show you where the dirt is in relationship to brick. But we also put a sprinkler in there. Pull that sprinkler up and down, Salvador. Okay? So we want that sprinkler 1/2 inch out of the soil or level with the soil. Do not have your sprinkler sticking up 2 inches out of the soil or 1 inch out of the soil. The dirt on the sod is 3/4 inch thick, approximately. So you want about 1/2 to 3/4 inch of sprinkler sticking out, or if anything, just leave the sprinkler smooth with the soil because it'll pop up out of the sod and you won't have any problems with that. One step I could tell you about sprinklers, I think that we've got to make sure we buy a sprinkler that has a long enough pop-up section of the sprinkler. And what I'm talking about there is when you go to the store, buy a sprinkler that has a pop-up of at least 4 inches. You could go 6 inches, but do not go 2 inches. If it only pops up 2 inches, your sprinkler, when it pops up, is not going to get above the grass level, and the grass is going to interfere with the projection of the water and where it's heading, and it will get brown spots on your lawn, and also you will get too wet in certain areas. So get at least a 4-inch pop-up. And when you're buying your sprinklers, also buy a sprinkler, what they call a swivel joint. Buy a swivel joint. And the reason for this is so that when you put your sprinkler in, it's easier for you to adjust it later before you lay your sod. So you can adjust it up and down and make your adjustment easy. And also, if you step on the sprinkler later on, or your kids are playing, or the lawnmower hits the sprinkler into the ground, it won't be so rigid that it breaks the sprinkler. The sprinkler will be able to give a little bit. So I think this is a very important factor on the installation of sprinklers. Turn the water on for me, Salvador. Another quick step on sprinklers. When you're doing your planning of your lawn, you need to know what the flow of water is for your sprinkler system. A real basic step to figure this out is to have a 5-gallon bucket. And if you take a hose and fill up the bucket, and it takes 30 seconds to fill up a 5-gallon bucket, you now have 10 gallons of water per minute. Now this basic step can be used to take to your sprinkler store and tell the guy that's helping you or the gal designing your sprinkler system that I have 10 gallons of water per minute at my house. They need that basic figure. They're going to assume probably a 45 to 60 pound pressure, but at least they have a guideline on how much gallons per minute's coming out of your system at home. So if you have 10 gallons per minute and each sprinkler runs 2.5 gallons per minute, you can run 4 sprinklers at a time. One of the biggest errors in sprinkler design is people put too many sprinklers on one valve at a time, and their pressures are way too low, and they don't get adequate coverage. And then one more design, and they'll tell you that at the store, but from a sod guy's perspective, always have 100% coverage on sprinkler design. And what I mean by that is if this sprinkler can cover 10 feet in each direction, even though this lawn's 10 foot wide, I don't put just one sprinkler in a corner because it can reach this 10-foot area. I put another sprinkler on this corner so that this sprinkler overlaps here 100% and this one here 100%. Now you get even distribution of your water. That's another improper design in a lot of sprinkler systems, and it causes brown areas in the lawn. So do 100% overlap, and then at that point, a lot of folks will say, well, that'll put too much water on my lawn. No, you just won't run it as many minutes in your sprinkler system later. Instead of running it for hours, you'll just run it for a few minutes and you'll get on the adequate, even coverage that we're looking for. Okay, the next part to grading the lawn before we lay the sod is we're going to apply some starter fertilizer. Salvador, why don't you put a little fertilizer down there? That's good, Luis. We've got it rolled out nice and firm. What Luis has done here is firmed up an area. And now before we plant the sod and at the final stage of the grading, Salvador is applying a good, well-balanced fertilizer. We can supply you that here at Park Avenue Turf. When you call the office, tell the young lady or the guy on the phone that we're going to need some fertilizer, and we can bring out a bag of fertilizer for you with your sod. And the bag will tell you how much to put on. With most lawn fertilizers, it's 5 to 6 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Let me caution you, do not put the whole bag on. We're going to sell you a bag that'll last you on most lawns a year, and you're going to put it on about every 2 months, every 4 to 6 weeks to 2 months. But on your first installation, just put on the amount that it says, which is 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Thank you, Salvador. That's it.